This video is sponsored by KiwiCo, and here are some cats.
Columbo, are you busy? You working hard? Yeah. That's what I thought.
Hello, I recently put out an outtakes video, and some people in the comments were freaking out. So this leads us to the very important question. Is Slow Mo Guys scripted? Now the answer is very, very simple. No. No, it's actually never been scripted. We've never had a single scripted episode. The only parts that I remember being quite rigid were the little end cards at the end of Super Slow Show, where we had to say stuff like, did you like that video? Watch this wrestling one, or watch Dan break his arm, or stuff like that. Click here to watch Dan get slammed by pro wrestlers. I have no memory of that. That was written by YouTube, but to this day, that's the only thing we've had to memorize for the Slow Mo Guys, aside from like product facts or if in a sponsored segment, but still that's not written. I think the main concern was that during the outtakes video you could see us reacting to footage but saying the same stuff over and over again.
So say about motion blur again.
Oh, it's even got motion blur on there. Even got some motion blur. Who even got some motion blur? Even got some motion blur.
Motion blur at 3,000 frames a second at a 90-degree shutter.
The reason we do that is actually pretty simple. We just react naturally to the footage. In fact, I block Dan from looking at it because I want all of his reactions to be seen for the first time on camera.
Don't look. Okay.
Oh, I'm playing some sort of like deadly trumpet.
Lethal bagpipe.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a little different. I'm saving the footage first and making sure it's all good, so I sort of glimpse it, but I still try not to analyze it until camera's on us and we're naturally reacting. The reason that bit seems scripted is that we were reacting to the footage naturally. I was queuing up that clip.
Let me just switch this to frame by frame mode.
And Dan noticed that there was motion blur, so he said, "Oh, some motion blur there, B."
Okay. Now watch.
There's some blur there, B.
It's blur. We're at 3,000 frames a second at a 90-degree, which is...
You don't usually do that, to be fair.
I then jumped into the answer, started explaining why, but realized I had to do a little bit of maths. 90 degrees on 3,000 frames a second was a 12,000th of a second exposure, but it didn't come to me right in that moment. I had to just stop and do some very simple maths, but I got it in the end. And then in order for it to sound like it flows, I have Dan just repeat the last question he asked, or the last comment he made.
So say about motion blur again.
Oh, it's even got motion blur on there.
So I can then just go straight into it, and it continues. So I eventually got through the answer, and then what you see in the final video is the first time he asked the question with the first time I got all the way through the answer without buggering it up.
Let me just switch this to frame by frame mode. Now watch.
There's some blur there, B.
Yeah, at 3,000 frames a second at a 90-degree shutter.
God.
And the reason I combine the first take from Dan and then the first successful take from me is that sounds the most natural. It's the first time we've said it. And you can tell in all of the versions where he's repeating that line, doesn't sound natural compared to the first time he asked it. And that's just because, well, it didn't come up naturally in conversation. I'm telling him to say it just so I can have a jumping off point. And I think that's one of the most important things about our videos is that nothing is ever scripted. If there's like a learning factor, we'll do the research, talk about it, but we will literally just hit record on this camera, stand in front of it, have a little chat, and I'll just make some cuts in editing so it flows a lot better. Or we'll get to the end of our chat and be like, all right, let's make sure we mention this, or we left something out, or let's just get to that point quicker and we'll maybe take it again. But all the reaction stuff is just off the cuff, and most of the intro stuff is the first good take we got. If you watched the outtakes video and suddenly thought the Slow Mo Guys was a lie, don't worry. We just use various techniques to get us through it and keep it sounding very natural. But yeah, it's all unscripted. Even the Super Slow Show and Planet Slow Mo, lots of the criticism on that show were too scripted. It was better when you were just in the back garden. That was a completely unscripted show. We didn't have any scripts aside from the little bumpers I mentioned before. The only reason I think it sounded more scripted is that we would practice off camera just because we had a crew of like 75 people most days, and we didn't have the time and, you know, the data space to just riff over and over again on camera. By the time they pressed record, we wanted it to be, we kind of knew our beats. So maybe, yeah, maybe that did make it sound a bit wooden, but still entirely unscripted, and we did approach it the exact same way we would any video. But maybe the fact that we were just a little bit over practiced in what we were saying made it sound, you know, like I'm gonna stop talking now and Dan will start talking then, as opposed to riff, riff, riff. And that's why even after doing Planet Slow Mo and Super Slow Show, when it's just the two of us, we like to do everything for the first time on camera, because that's the realest stuff. And I think it's just more enjoyable banter, to be honest. Hopefully that answered your question. TLDR, no it's not.
Oh boy, a lot has changed in the world since I filmed that. That's right, I have a beard now, a much longer beard. I'm now going to talk to you about the sponsor of this video, KiwiCo. KiwiCo is a wonderful subscription service to boxes of cool and educational activities, very fitting for these times that we currently live in. I have two examples here, the Eureka Crate and the Tinker Crate. This one is a sort of a walking wooden robot, actually functional. This one is trash kit ball, and I've had a look at the instructions, very comprehensive instructions. KiwiCo inspires kids to see themselves as makers and inventors and engineers. If you don't have kids, exposure change, no one's going to judge you for getting stuck in yourself. KiwiCo offers 8 different subscription lines, and each box comes with every single thing you need to complete the activity. You don't need to go out, don't need to go to the shops. It's all in the box. As a wonderful viewer of this here Slow Mo Guys 2 channel, you have a 20% off offer across all of KiwiCo. Anything in the store, any subscription box service, 20% off if you go to kiwico.com/slowmo. It's up here, it's down there. Give it a click if you like. I'm going to crack on with this. I know it's for throwing stuff into, but I assure you it will become one of the new favorite spots for one of my cats to sit. Thanks for watching.